I said quite some time ago, but we've repeated it really since then, that one of the things you are especially going to find going forward, not only is the sort of, shall we say, um, buyer's regret for voting leave, but just like the Iraq War, which you can go back and you can find public opinion polls that were through the roof for supporting going into Afghanistan and Iraq. Those polls were out. They're out there. You can still find them. Public support for those wars was both very, very high at the time. However, fast forward a couple of years, and we covered this, a couple of times since then. But it's very hard, even though public support was that high, just statistically, if you sat on a street, you should have been able to encounter someone who was in favour of those wars. However, if you were to conduct that experiment, you wouldn't be able to find anyone. And I highly suspect that in 2 or 3 years' time, you'll be able to go to these overwhelming, leave voting areas and not find anyone who will openly publicly say or even acknowledge that they voted for leave. And it's already happening. This story today comes from the Business Insider, and its headline is "Support for Brexit is collapsing as poll finds shrinking majority of British people still back leaving the EU." So here we are. So a growing number of British people believe it was wrong for the UK to have voted to leave the EU, according to a new poll which found that Brexit regret is at its highest since the 2016 referendum. I wonder why. I'm sure it has nothing to do with, as we've been saying for a while, the fact that Project Fear is turning into Project Reality, is what we said. The other thing was that, these promises that the Brexiteers made ain't going to materialise. They far overpromised in what they would say they would bring, and obviously these just haven't straight up materialised. And it is very, very obvious that these effects just aren't going to be there, especially now, since we are still in a recession, caused not only by COVID, but worsened because of basically the indecision to be able to get and decide on what Brexit actually was, which should have been decided at the referendum, because we've said before, Leave ran such a wide range of what it wanted. Remember, one of the things that Leave said, even Nigel Farage said, was that it would be perfectly fine to be like Norway, who was both in the single market and customs union. But for some reason it's not now, when that's suggested. So a poll for YouGov of 1,623 British adults conducted last week suggests that 50% now believe that it was wrong for Britain to leave the European Union, the highest figure since the polling company has recorded since it began asking the question. By contrast, just 39% of people said that Britain was right to leave the EU. The gap between those who still back leaving the EU and those who now believe it was wrong has grown by 8 points since the start of September. Once uncertain voters are removed from that total, the poll suggests that 56% think Brexit was a mistake compared to just 44% who still think it was right. The survey also found that just 28% of people think the government is handling Britain's exit from the EU well, and that was down 30 points. I wonder why. But then, we said this before, and as I speak today, Michael Gove is out in Brussels, starting what I expect to be the great climb down of all this, because There is no way that Boris doesn't walk out with a deal, even though I would fully agree that Brexit was, well, the outcome for Brexit for a lot of people has been, oh, we're heading for a no deal. And yeah, it's hard not to think that. But there is no way that Boris Johnson doesn't really want a deal. It's what his entire platform for that entire election was about, that he would have a deal, that he had an oven-ready deal. And at this time of just complete and utter incompetence, there's no way that Boris Johnson, especially the Tories, because this reflects bad on all of them, because pretty much every single Tory MP out there stood on that platform, makes them look absolutely ridiculous when they fail to bring back a deal. One that, again, we can just repeat numerous times and see all the different slogans from them saying it was the easiest deal in history to, we held all the cards for. So, what went wrong? Well, turns out, we weren't in the position that, these Brexiteers were saying we were in. So that was down from, so remember, it was 28% of people think that the government is handling Britain's exit from the EU well. That was down by 30 points just taken earlier in September. This compares to the total of 61% who think the government is handling it badly, up by 5 points from the beginning of September. Even many Leave voters are dissatisfied with the government's progress, with 39% saying that negotiations have been handled badly. The latest polling comes as the UK and the EU engage in a period of intense negotiations as they try to negotiate a free trade agreement to avoid a no-deal Brexit in January, which could compound the period of intense economic gloom triggered by the coronavirus pandemic. So, a no deal just doesn't make sense, and there's only really two options for them to go at this point. Either A, they go, well, we're going to extend the transition period, which will again be seen by the Brexiteers as a complete loss and ignominious defeat, but they will also view it as a betrayal, which is exactly what they want, because they love to be not only the betrayed but the betrayers at the same time. So that will work perfectly well for them. But it will also just countenance the fact that, hey, why are we leaving the single market customs union? It's good for us to be in that, and they don't want to hear that argument at this time, because once again, it just proves how good we are being in that system. And then once you're in that system, it just begs the question of why aren't we just full EU members? Because then we have more say over what happens and what goes on in the EU. So, as I've always said, even should we leave with a deal or even no deal, all that will happen is we will just slide back into the EU. In this case, economics will just not be denied. So the UK is currently in a Brexit transition period, which means it will remain signed up to EU rules and trades within its single market, despite the fact that it has formally left the bloc. Johnson has insisted that the UK will not extend the transition period and says that both sides must have struck a deal by mid-October. However, talks are at a standstill after Johnson brought in the new internal markets bill, which many ministers believe would break international law by overriding parts of the legally binding Brexit withdrawal agreement agreed by both sides last year. And we've already talked about that. You don't sign a withdrawal agreement bill, say we are going to legally sign up to these things, and then just go, we'll break it. What faith do other people having deals like that set for us in the future? Quote, because we want to be, quote, global Britain, and do all these, quote, amazing trade deals. It just doesn't make any bit of sense from start to finish. But that's Brexit in a nutshell. It just won't make sense from start to finish. But there you go. So anyway, thank you for watching. Please do like and share the video around. It does help out the channel loads. If you are new to the channel, do hit that subscribe button. We talk a lot about British politics and, of course, Brexit as well, because you can't separate the two, and that's going to be the case for some time to come, even after the end of this year. And of course, down below there are links to my Patreon page, as well as a one-off donation link, should you like to support the channel that way. So with that said, thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next time.